Common Guru, and today we're going to take a look at the next question in our New Year, New Way series. Do you suffer from the 6 basic fears? Now, Napoleon Hill, in his book Think and Grow Rich and the Law of Success, narrowed down the human existence to 6 basic fears: poverty, criticism, loss of love, ill health, old age, and death. So in this video, we're just going to touch on them a little bit because I could spend an hour-long video on each one, actually, but that's not what this question is about. It's just summarizing the 6. Poverty. That was a big one for me. I have had a fear of poverty for a very long time. In fact, when I was going through this, and as I mentioned in other videos, when I was going through this financial distress that I was putting on myself in regards to my loss of my job, I battled with the fear of losing everything. I thought I was going to end up like a person on the street, and it just plagued me. I wasn't really sure where that feeling was coming from because I've never been on the street. Sure, I've gone through some pretty stressful financial times, but I've been able to bounce back. So it was a very interesting analysis of that question of the fear of poverty. For I had a terrible fear of poverty, but I didn't really understand where it came from. For my own personal experience, I know that my parents, we lost our home, but we were never on the street. My mom always was superhuman and made sure that we had enough food to eat and clothes on our back. But it was just a loss that I was deathly afraid of. Fear of criticism. If poverty was number 2, criticism was number 1. I was always afraid of what people were going to think. It's almost like I had these voices speaking to me about how they thought I looked funny, or my hair was funny, or I talked funny, or I did this, or whatever I did. It was constant criticism. And one of the reasons why I didn't want to do the Common Guru, even these videos were right, was I was having this angry voice in my head telling me continuously that I couldn't do it, or I couldn't do it good enough, and I didn't know what I was doing. Little did I know that was my belief profile talking, but it masked itself in the fear of criticism. I met a gentleman that was very talented in painting, and I saw some of his artwork on the wall of his home, and it was amazing. He was able to catch the landscape in a way that made you feel that you were standing right there. But he only had like 6 or 7 paintings, and he did them years and years ago, and I was always wondering why he only had so many or so few. So I asked him. And back in the day, for you young people, like when there was magazines, were one of the few ways that we actually could read stuff. There was no internet. There was this little cartoon-like picture that they advertised that you could learn how to draw. And I remember seeing those, and I thought about it, but my fear of criticism stopped me from doing that. Well, he was one of the brave souls that decided that he would do that. He sent one of his artwork, one picture of his artwork in, and he was criticized and told that he had no talent. So instead of actually believing somebody else or going to get a second opinion or believing in himself, he took it to heart and stopped painting. It didn't matter how much his friends told him, his family told him. It didn't matter. That one opinion crippled him for the rest of his life, and he never painted again. What a waste of talent and ability to share himself with the world. Fear of ill health. There was a time in my life when I was always worried about when I got sick if I was going to get cancer or whatever, but I've realized that that didn't help me whatsoever. And this internet age has made it very difficult for people because they self-diagnose themselves and they scare themselves to death. I have a friend of mine who is a chronic hypochondriac. She is, if something happens with her, it's the worst case scenario and she's going to die, and she puts herself into a complete panic attack about what is going on in her body and how she's going to handle it. And I just sit there and look at her, and I realize that's not what I want to do. So whenever I start to get the feelings of fear like that, I talk to myself and realize that, getting all this worry about whether or not I'm going to be sick is not going to help me. In fact, it's making me sick, because the more stress I put on my body, if you read about most of the symptoms of, or not symptoms, but causes of a lot of diseases in our body, it's stress. So if you can think you're going to be sick and make yourself sick of becoming sick, then it's just this vicious cycle. That's where they say you make yourself sick, because if you put yourself your body into a state of stress, you allow yourself to become susceptible to illnesses and such. Fear of loss of love. Ooh, I think this one is actually a contender for fighting with poverty for me. There was a relationship that I had in my life, the one that I talked in a previous post that I had the tarot reading where I had to leave, that I compromised myself because I really convinced myself that I couldn't live without this person, that the fear of loss of love, that that person wouldn't be in my life anymore and I wouldn't be loved, decimated me. I just would rather compromise myself and lose everything. I almost was to the point where I lost my children because I needed to have this person in my life. And that's why when I was in that tarot reading and I had to come face to face, we're realizing that compromise is not love, either is sacrifice. That was a very heavy lesson for me, and I'll be talking about that in a different post. But the fear of loss of love, I have felt that one. I am no longer trapped by that anymore. I love my husband dearly, but I'm not fearful of losing his love because I'll always have it. So I was able to work through the difference between compromise and sacrifice and actually experience what true love is without the fear of loss. Fear of old age. That's not mine. I just love my gray hair. The other day I was looking at my mirror and mirror and I saw my side profile and I realized that I'm getting those, whatever those called, crow's feet or whatever there. And I'm like, well, you know what? I earned them. I'm 50 and I'm not going to be looking like I'm 20, and I really feel for the men and women that are trapped, that they feel that as soon as they turn 30 that they have to be like almost be cryogenics, where they got to freeze themselves because that's where they were their most beautiful. Beauty comes in all ages, and if you're working on yourself and you're beautiful, you feel beautiful on the inside, you are beautiful on the outside. There are so many women that make, and men, like they go through all this plastic surgery to try and recapture this age where they felt beautiful, but you can feel beautiful at any age. I don't wear makeup now, and I have a different post on Steam It where I talk about the beauty, the beast behind the beauty, where I just struggled with that so much and put my face and my hair and my body through different circumstances to attain how I would feel beautiful. But honestly, I feel more beautiful now without any of those things than I ever did before. So I'm not afraid of old age, but I do understand why some people can be, for they feel old age cannot be glamorous, but there's also the vulnerability of who's going to take care of you and how are you going to be able to function in the world, because we come into this world kind of dependent and in diapers, and some of us can leave the world this way and it's not a very pretty sight. So I can understand how some people can have a fear of old age. Fear of death. This is a tough one because there are so many theories on there about what happens when you die. And even when you have the same book, the Bible, that some people follow, some of them have different views of what happens when you die. And some of them paint a pretty nasty picture. I can understand why people don't want anything to do with those pictures, because they're scary. There's eternal damnation, or I don't for me, I don't endorse any of those type of situations, but a lot of people do. And I can understand why, if you feel that you're going to be tormented for the rest of your life, why you'd be afraid to die. This is also, I think it's the biggest thing, is the fear of the unknown, because we really don't have anyone that's been there and back that can tell us exactly what it's like. And then it's also going to be subjective to their perspective and their view and their experience. So I don't see how getting worked up over something that we have no idea what it's going to be like, it's just wrecking the surprise in my mind. It's almost like you have an idea of a trip that you're going to go on, and you're worrying about everything that could go wrong and how awful it could be, where you could really destroy the trip. So fear of death for me is not one, but I do understand, and I actually have people that I know very closely that have an extreme fear of death, and they're very worried about what's going to happen when they die. With the 6 of these, what I figured out, my top 3 were poverty, criticism, and loss of love. So maybe you have different ones, maybe you have the same. And I hope that we can all work through them all so that we're not controlled by this fear any longer. So thanks for visiting, everyone. If you want to find out new and exciting ways to connect with the Common Guru, just take a look down below in our description box. And thanks for watching, and have a great day. Bye.